They say a rooster crowing is God's wake-up call. Yeah, at least that's the way it was for me. Everything, that whole night was a blur, all right? I didn't comprehend, none of us could comprehend everything that was going on, all right? We were all in the upper room, Jesus was washing our feet, then we were in the garden, Jesus goes off to pray by himself. I fell asleep. I'm not proud of it. I had a big meal. Bread makes me sleepy. Next thing we know, me, James, and John, Jesus is in our face, and he's trying to wake us up. And he said, the flesh is weak, the spirit is willing. And then before we know it, Judas is kissing Jesus on the cheek. I try to go help him. I cut off this guard's ear. For the record, I wasn't aiming for his ear. I'm a fisherman, not a swordsman. And then they arrest Jesus and they take him off. And we ran. And it wasn't but 2 hours earlier that we were in the upper room. I was looking at him. I was looking him right in the eye saying, if everyone disowns you, Jesus, I won't. I'm with you. I love you. And I think that's what made me stop, turn around, go back. And I caught a glimpse of Jesus as they were taking him to the high priest's house. Stood at the gate, and some girl comes up to me, starts pointing at me, starts going, you're with him. You're with this man that claims to be the Son of God. You're one of his disciples. I felt like every eye was on me. So I just brushed her off. I said, you don't know what you're talking about. You got the wrong guy. I get my way into the courtyard, and it's cold. I try to warm up by the fire. And then there's this guard that recognizes me, and he is from the ear incident, and starts going, get him, he's with him, just arrest him, get him. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about, all right? I wasn't with him. It was easier the second time to deny him. It was sometime right before morning, and this wise guy, he comes up to me and goes, who you kidding, all right? Who you fooling? You're with him. I can tell by your accent. I'm like, this is just the way I talk, all right? And the whole night, they kept pushing him around. They kept beating him. They kept spitting on him, throwing insults at him, and I couldn't take it anymore. I had enough. I was tired of people accusing me, looking at me, and I said a few things that I'm not proud of, but I was like, leave him alone. You don't know what you're doing, all right? Just leave him alone. I wasn't with him. And that's when I heard the most blood-curdling sound I ever heard in my whole life. I heard that rooster crow. And at that moment, Jesus, he turns around and he looks at me. He looks at me. And his gaze, you can't escape his gaze. I mean, when his eyes are on you, you cannot escape it. And they arrested him and they took him off. I will die with you, Jesus. If everybody disowns you, I will die with you. What a joke. I mean, what would you do? At that moment, at that time, I ran. I ran so fast, I ran so long. And you know what they did? They killed him. He's dead.
Last week, we talked all about lament in our journey through the Lent season, about expressing our emotions, good and bad, to God. And this week's lesson, we're going to build off that, but it's going to be just a little different. Because for all of the things that we've talked about so far, we can't walk through the season of Lent with Jesus and not talk about one of the most important parts of this journey, one of the most important events in human history. And that's the emotions and the feelings that we go through as we follow Jesus to the cross. And this really isn't an easy topic for us to talk about. We spend so much of our time in life and in the church talking about and focusing on the positive, the grace and love, and those things are monumental when it comes to our faith. But in the process of this, we tend to bottle up and push to the side the feelings of loss and grief and struggle that we have. But we can't push those things to the side because Jesus didn't push those things to the side. So take a minute and answer this question amongst yourselves. Why do you think grief is so difficult for us to talk about? Once a year, we reserve a week to look at how Jesus went through and dealt with grief, loss, and death. And as uncomfortable as it is for us to talk about these things, we find hope for them in the Gospels. And today we're going to do that by looking for Jesus' last words. So I want you guys to split up into 4 groups. You're going to assign each group one of the Gospels, and you're going to spend a few minutes looking for Jesus' last words. When you find those, feel free to share with the class. Compare how each gospel remembers this differently, focuses on different words, different things Jesus might have said, and talk about why you think that is. Because we're focusing on loss this week, we're going to be looking at the account of Jesus' last words in the book of Matthew, specifically in chapter 27.
From the 6th hour until the 9th hour, darkness came over all the land. About the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of those standing there heard this, they said, he's calling Elijah. Immediately one of them ran and got a sponge. He filled it with wine vinegar, put it on a stick, and offered it to Jesus to drink. The rest said, now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to save him. And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit.
Really powerful words. Some really powerful last words. And if we were to re-say what it is Jesus says here, it might sound something like this. My God, why have you abandoned me? Or why have you given up on me? You know, in the church we hear so often about how God will never give up on us and he'll never leave us. But here we find Jesus saying that that's exactly what is happening to him. That's a really hard thing for us to understand. I think we've heard the story of Jesus' death so many times, so many different ways over the course of our life, that we've become numb to the pain in Jesus' voice and the absurdity of what it is he's saying. In this moment, Matthew tells us that Jesus felt completely abandoned by God. And it was in this dark moment that the one who we believe to be God in the flesh felt completely and utterly alone. Jesus was experiencing this pain that we all go through as humans. In this moment, Jesus has given up. Everything he was working for during his life, everything that his ministry had accomplished, it's all gone. And here and now, Jesus knows that he's about to die. This is probably the weakest and most vulnerable a person can truly be. It's a moment that we fear and think about for our life, and we grieve when it happens. But Jesus is going through this right now, and it allows him to know what we're going through in our very darkest moments. And if you'll remember back in the garden, Jesus asked God specifically, God, is there any other way besides the cross? God said no. And I wonder how many times we have been like Jesus in situations and circumstances that we don't like and that we feel like are crushing us. And we've asked, even begged like Jesus did, for something different to happen, anything else. But like Jesus in the garden, sometimes nothing changes. And we still have to face the pain in our life and the truth of what is happening to us. But because Jesus endured this pain and suffering, something new happens. He was crucified and he died. But he was resurrected back to life. Jesus didn't stay dead. Through this, Jesus has invited us to give our lives to him and to be crucified with him. And I know that sounds insane. But if we give up our lives and we surrender everything to Jesus, we will be resurrected as Jesus was. He endured crucifixion and experienced everlasting life. And it is through our very own sacrifice, loss, and surrender to Jesus that we experience this very same everlasting life. This gives true meaning to what Jesus teaches in Matthew 16. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, pick up their cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life on account of me will find it. Losing ourselves to find God is a central part of following Jesus. Because the only way that we will ever truly be able to understand and appreciate the life and fullness of living in God is to first lose as Jesus did. So let's take some time now to pray as Jesus did in the garden. Not my will, God, but yours. So I want you to take a minute, close your eyes, take a really deep breath, and think about something that you're holding on to. Whether it's because you're stressing and the situation feels like it's crushing you, or you're worrying about being in control of your life. I want you to imagine that you're holding that thing in the palm of your hand in a fist. Because so often the things that trouble us, the things that worry us, we cling to with everything that we have. Take some time right now to do that. And now I want you to open your hands, face your palms towards heaven, letting go of the things that have been crushing you, that have been holding you down and causing you stress and worry and grief. No longer having to worry and consider the loss, the pain and reality of what life is happening around you. And say, God, I want to lose control of this, lose control of myself, so that I can have life in you. Now, in the midst of all of this, I want to remind you guys of something that's super important. Because we know about the loss on Friday. We know about the crucifixion. But we know that that isn't the end of the story. We know what's coming. But it's vital for us to remember that the only way to get to the blessings of new life in Jesus is to go through death as Jesus did too. Let us pray.
Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.